Cool. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is when, we were talking about data integrations, this idea of migrating from old world to new world. And I wanted to give a little bit of a lower level example of the strategy that you should employ when you're migrating from the old world to the new world. So when we say old world, what I'm specifically talking about is some sort of data set, whether that's a CRM, an ERP, whatever it is, right? So this is old, and then we're going to have our new. So at the end of the day, any sort of system that has data in it is either going to be having other systems pull data from it in terms of what we call a read, or it's going to be writing to it with what we call a write. So it's easy to think about if I'm migrating from old world to new world, well, let's just rewrite everything, right? Let's just rewrite all the reads and writes, and then we do one data load here, and then we're all good to go, and everything works perfect. Well, unfortunately, that, like I just said, is not a good way to approach that problem. We see that fail time and time again. So then how do we get it to the point where if we have two systems reading and two systems writing to it, how do we get those over here in an incremental fashion? So the idea is that you focus first on the writes, and then you move over the reads. And let me demonstrate why that approach works. So if we focus on the writes, what we do is these go away. We rewrite them here. And then we establish a data sync between these two. This is where that event architecture comes into play. So the idea is when a write hits the new system, an event is published that gets put into the old world. And so the idea is that if you rewrite your writes first, you can leave everything that's reading from the old system in place so that the data is flowing still backwards to the old world. You can add new use cases to the new world because this has now become the source of truth, and anything legacy that's in place can continue to operate in the same way that it is now. And then you can slowly, one by one, in a value-driven, prioritized approach, rewrite these until all of a sudden you have nothing else on that old system and it's safe to decommission and you have everything on your new world. And the advantage to that was that there was a small level of effort up front to move the writes over, but what you can now start to do in parallel is you can add your new use cases, you can bring those new business opportunities, that business value to market immediately. And then at the same time, you can start to replace and rewrite your any applications that are reading from it and modernize those. And you can do that incrementally over time while adding value to your business.
What's a read and what's a write?
Yeah, sure. So a read is basically any application that is pulling data. It's reading data from the source system. So for example, if you think of an e-commerce, a shopping cart, there's something that has that's managing your inventory. You have some sort of inventory management solution. When your e-commerce site is looking up the inventory that's available, that's a read, right? When a purchase is made and that deducts an item from that inventory, that's a write. You are changing the state within that data source.